Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and Neva. Okay, so I'm excited to talk about this game. Okay, so here's how this video is gonna go. I'm gonna talk about Neva, I'm gonna talk about the basics of the gameplay, and I'm gonna talk about the art along the way and how math is used across the board. Now, with the story for Neva, I don't think talking about it will really spoil your experience, but I am gonna talk about it. And it's worth noting that it is like primarily just visual storytelling, but I'm going to talk about that and my interpretation of it. So assume spoilers ahead, but again, I don't think it should bother you, but it's worth mentioning. Spoilers ahead. So with that in mind, let's get into it. So Neva is to me a spiritual successor to a game that was made by the same studio and publisher. So with Neva, it's awesome. So to back it up a little bit, like Grease, Gris, is an excellent game made by Nomada Studios and published by Devolver Digital, and it blew my mind when I played it. Right, like I had heard about it, I seen like the basis. I'm like, okay, I'm curious, let me play it, and it was brilliant. And so Neva, Neva, it's made by the same studio and same publisher, and it feels like an evolution of what Grease was, and they're both like excellent in their own ways. So let's get into it. So with Neva, right, it's primarily a platformer, right, with some combat elements. It's doing a lot. It's good stuff. So the basic idea is that you're navigating the levels. You play is Alba and her wolf Neva, and there's this idea of seasons, this idea of growth, and with the basic gameplay, you navigate each of the levels throughout the seasons with Alba and Neva, and you fight corruption along the way in the forms of like different creatures and different elements of the environment, right? And there are different combinations you can do. There's some basic attacks that Elba can do, and that Neva can help out with in terms of taking out opponents. There are better ways for me to say like all of us, but my point is this: like when playing with Elba, right? You can do your basic attacks. You can do some dodges. You can do some dashes, and you can do some killer moves with Neva along the way. And so you're traversing the environment, doing some platforming, fighting the corruption, all that good stuff. And if you're playing it on the regular mode, you do take hits, but you can regenerate your health by forming chains, right? And there's math and all of that, and we're gonna get into that. But I also wanted to talk about like the art direction. It is a visually stunning game. Neva is a visually stunning game, much like Grease. And there's so much that's done with the colors, how they make you feel, the way things are animated, the line work. There's just so much that's deliberate. I feel like a lot of people have this idea that math and art are two different things, but they work side and side. Math is everywhere and in everything. Art is no exception, and math isn't as rigid as people think, as we often are taught. So I feel like when it comes to video games, there's such a perfect intersection of math and art, and I'm going to talk about just a lot of that. Okay, so the idea with Neva is like just based on the combat and the platform elements. There's a lot of math involved. There's math and how you're traversing that level, math and the distances that you're going, and the lengths that you're traveling, and the angles and the positions that you're taking while you're trying to get from this part to that part. And then there's the idea of the environment pretty much attacking you, right? And so it's like you have to use combat. You have to decide what's going to work. And you have Alba to consider, but also Neva, and you're going from Neva being a cub to being a full-grown adult wolf, which sounds weird to say like that. So just cub to wolf, all right. But so you have that, right? and Neva gets more abilities to help you traverse each environment. And there's a point where you can move faster by getting on Neva. Neva can also be used in combat, as I mentioned before, and so there's math into all these things, not only in how they function and how they flow, but your decisions as a player as you're navigating each level. And there's the idea of you're dealing with these different seasons and how the environments are looking during those seasons, and the idea of growth. Neva is a cub to Neva is an adult, and how you're interacting with all that. And then you have the idea of the art, because not only is there math in the level design as far as like how the gameplay will go and how you'll navigate that, but it's the artistic choices, right? Because you not only have Elba and Neva, but the different corruption on the screen, it's like, well, you have to worry about like scaling and the scope of it all, right? But that's not all. It's like, well, hey, what colors are we going to use? What lines are we going to use, and how? And with color, it's like color is something that's inherently mathematical, whether we think about it that way or not, right? Like we're dealing with the visual, sorry, the visible light spectrum, and we're dealing with things along those lines, and those colors can convey different emotions for us, right? Or to us, and they could be used in these intricate, beautiful ways. And everything in Neva is deliberate, right? And then as far as the line work that I'm talking about, right, it could be just like how different things in the environment are built, like different platforms in that environment, the ground level, how everything is suited up. But then there's also like these intricate like networks that you could see throughout the game, and that's done really well and effective in how they come at you. The animation is done really well, and there's math in the animation, right? Just all across the board. We're dealing with motion. We're dealing with speed. We're dealing with how that comes to you, the player. And so you have the animation, you have the color, you have the line work, and then there's just like how everything is, tied into the gameplay. Because there's just moving from point A to point B, and sometimes that's a bit straightforward. And that is inherently mathematical itself, right? But it gets kind of interesting, right? Because there's one level that I'm thinking of in particular where symmetry was important, reflection was important, and you had to take advantage of symmetry and reflection in order to navigate the level. That was really cool. And just overall, back to the color, back to the animation, everything is so intricate and so deliberate. It's like it's simple, but it's complex, right? It's just beautiful across the board. I and I dig it, because I think we could think, oh well, something simple and we don't think much of it, but here you're seeing some simple things put together in a complex way, something that's detailed, something that's intricate, and something that just like speaks to you on a really base level at the same time. And that to me is great, and I enjoyed playing it because everything was fluid, right? Everything was smooth, and everything just worked together so well. And there's math, and not only that, that level design, but like programming it. And so many things have to come together, right? So there's math in the programming, math in the design, both the level design and the character design, but also math in the marketing, math in the budgeting, math just across the board, every single level, because video games are involved projects. It takes several people, like a lot of people in some cases, to do a lot of various things, and then just putting it all together to have some incredible experience. And so when it comes to Neva, it's like largely visual storytelling, right? Like you're navigating this world, you're navigating it through four seasons. You're experiencing like Alba, who isn't changing much, working with Neva, who's a cub, then goes to the wolf. But if you're paying attention to the beginning and paying attention to the end, it ends up being like the same, and it hints at some like cyclical nature of everything, right? And that's what I would take away from it, and I think that's interesting too, right? So I mean, I'm sure there's so many different things I could talk about, but my big thing was just that Neva is a beautiful game that is like well designed. It's simple but complex. It's intricate, but it'll speak to you on a base level. And I dig it. I dig it hard. And it's so colorful and well animated. I hope you give it a try if you haven't given it a try already. I'll see you in the future.